Hello, my lovelies. Well, today I'm excited to have two guests on who can talk about their own experience, sometimes extremely traumatic experiences of the prison system, which even to this day is still lacking and needing reform. Now, my two guests are, and I'm just going to, let me just, Sarah Jane Baker, who was the longest serving transgender prisoner in the UK, and Cookie. And I don't need to introduce Cookie because you all know me as a frequent guest here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to come off because I'm going to moan about my camera, aren't I? I don't like my camera at the angle. I don't like my camera. It's going to start triggering me. So I'm coming off now. Oh no, I've gone full screen. What have I done? Now, here we are. Why won't it let me stop, Mike? Do you know, I did this the other day, didn't I, Cookie? And it was all right. I got myself off the screen. Hey, well, if I put an app, because I want you two on screen, not me. Hey, well, wait a minute. I'm going to work this out. Just talk amongst yourselves when, it's not working. Oh, go on, this is my learning process. So, what I want you to do is talk amongst yourselves when I'm trying to work out how I do this. Because I've got a funny feeling I'm going to knock my mic off when I do this. Let's see. See, it says stop my cam. It can't be that it... Oh, wait a minute. See?
Oh, hands gone off. Hiya.
How are you doing?
I'm all right, thank you. How's you?
Well, the same as everybody else, like struggling, paying their utility bills. My utilities went from £45 a month to £650 a month.
Oh, that's a hate. That's quite a lot.
God,
that, like.
It feels like a hate crime against people.
It really does,
oh my God. But I've got a diesel heater that runs off a 12-volt battery. You could put some sunflower oil or chip fat in it, and it'll work. Listen, I'm a survivor. I mean, I'm okay. I'll be all right. I've got a good support network behind me. Unlike many other people out there, my estate agent tells me there's 400,000 families due to be evicted. Shocking. We're in shocking times.
Shocking.
It's just
Nice.
It takes my breath away. Like I don't know if it's neglect or absolute hatred of poor people, but I tell you what, and especially the environment for transgender people nowadays, which you know as much as I do, is getting really toxic, and it's becoming to be really scary for a lot of people that I know.
But what I'm going to do, I can't work out how I get myself off this thing without taking my mic off, so it will just be me Avi up there. But I'd rather have you two showing. But for some reason, I can't work out how the hell you do it without turning my mic off. So what I'm going to do is introduce the two of you now. Say Sarah Jane Baker was the longest serving transgender woman in the UK prison system. Now, give us a summary, Sarah, of your... I'm not going full into it because I'll be jumping in, asking questions, and of course, Cookie has to give his experiences as well. Just give us a quick overview of how long you were in prison and the reason you see that there definitely needs to be reform in the prison system.
Well, I was in prison for 30 years. If I could say anything, if anyone deserved to do the time that they did, it was me. I did deserve it. I did. I took it on the chin, and I tried to learn as much as I could to try and turn my life around. But I was in prison because I was ill. I have this borderline personality disorder. Anyway, so I'm in prison doing 7 years. Then I get charged with attempted murder and get life imprisonment. So I end up doing 30 years, although I could have been out of prison in maybe 10, 12 years. But because I had a borderline personality disorder, this was held against me. And they were never going to let me out. Not all the time I had that diagnosis. but in prison I see really dark stuff. You know, I recognize evil when I see it, and I don't know if it's more about inside the prison system, the system itself being evil, but it has dehumanized people. It's just warehousing human beings. Some people are really fragile. The majority of people in prison are not even in jail for a violent offense.
Yeah.
I mean, and
Can I
that's
ask,
just
Sarah,
insane.
can I ask you what sort of offending behaviour courses what they're asking you to do and stuff?
What kind of offensive behaviour courses?
Aye.
Well, I was really quite lucky because I'm quite gregarious, I'm quite outgoing, and I always have been, and I was able to make the system work for myself. So if there was a course available, I had a good legal team which made sure that I pretty much got to the top of the list. So it started with the Violent Offender Treatment Program in Whitemore Prison, which was a pilot. So I did this course. It was supposed to be like 9 months long, and it was really intense. But the thing is, the minute the course finished, they said it was a pilot course and that you wouldn't be accredited for it. And they thought that people who had done this course had increased their risk of reoffending in the future because it had made them aware forensically, etc. From there, I did. I think I did a PASRO course, like a drug course.
I've heard of them.
My prison sentence, I was on heroin, and the second half of my prison sentence, I spent getting off it. Although I did have a period of about 5 years where I was on spice. I mean, I'm just being open with you. I've got no secret. So, I mean, the Daily Star published a story about me yesterday about removing my own testicles, you know, and spread it all over the papers. I'll just get the stuff out.
Sarah, I want to ask you about this because this is absolutely, I've heard you talking about this and it's absolutely alarming. Just tell them why you felt so desperate that you had to go to those measures. Just tell them what made you do that. Because this is disturbing.
Okay. So the quick rundown is I come from I come from a really abusive background, like stuff like you don't want to talk about, stuff that give you nightmares, right? Then into the care system, then into the youth custody system, then into the prison system, via being a rent boy and whatever. I did anything I needed to do to survive. I've always been a strong character and I've always been a strong person. And often that has led to my downfall, you know. But the borderline personality disorder, it makes me impulsive. So when people tell me no, when authority tells me no, that I can't have something, which I know to be my right, which is I have this condition called gender dysphoria, where I feel like, my understanding from my own life experience is that I feel I was born inside the wrong body. I feel I'm a female trapped in this male shell. Now, a lot of people can't get their heads around that, and I don't really mind. I'm not trying to trick anybody. I'm not trying to get anyone to use she, her pronouns. Use whatever pronouns you want. I'm the toughest person you'll ever meet. That's true. Anyone who knows me will tell you that. I'm really strong. And I have to be strong to be able to take all the trolling and all the hatred and vitriol that gets thrown at me. But I welcome that. I say, get it out of your system. And then we can talk about the real issues, which is about freedom. Now, if people like me can't be free to live their own life, I'm not asking to go into women's toilets. If it makes it easier for people, make a unisex one that people are happy with, or make one for trans women, but sort it out. Because I hate I hate the fact that we're trending, but we're not trending across social media.
Oh, there we are. Must have lost signal. Oh, what happened then?
Sarah, you can't hear you. Sarah, can you hear me?
We can't hear you, Sarah. Cookie, mime to her that you can't hear.
Sarah, we can't hear you in.
We can't hear.
We can't hear you. Your mic's knocked off or something.
Can't hear.
No,
Do you hear? Do your ear, Cookie. Mine with your ear. Tell her that you can't
We
hear
can't
it.
hear you. No, we can't.
That's it.
Can you hear us?
Well, the mic's on,
No,
but
no, we can't. Can you hear us?
that's a, I'll do some mind waves maybe. Yeah. Your mic's on, but we can't hear you. Your mic is on. You might have to reboot, but your mic is actually on. It's just that we can't hear you.
You'll have to log out and log back in. There we go. There.
I can hear something now. Is that your side, Cookie? I can hear the
It's my
motorbike.
side.
Aye. So can't it? You'll have to. Can you hear us? Nod if you can.
Yeah, you one. Me bother.
Say that if you can hear me. Nod.
No.
If you can hear me, nod. If you can hear me, nod. 3 times. No, she can't hear me.
No.
So she doesn't. Well, what I'm going to have to kick her out the live stream.
And tell
Kick
her to
from
log
studio.
back in.
Then she'll have to log back in. Yeah, she'll have to get back in. Let's see. So what I was asking her that for was because the reason she went to that drastic measure was because she wasn't being offered any help in the prison system itself. Now, just let me, I'll just send this message to her now. Need to log back in. Oh, we will. I think I can hear it now. Let's see. Here we are. Can we hear you now?
Can you hear me? I can hear you.
Can hear you now, yeah.
Yeah.
I can hear some other noise though. It sounds like a street scene from New York.
Oh, that's Cookie blaming for that. What I was saying was that the reason why you had to go to those drastic measures was because the prison service didn't offer you any help at all, did they? They just were not going to offer you any support or help.
The thing is, I can't really blame the prison service. They didn't have a clue what to do. The prisoner service instruction for the care and management of transgender prisoners only came out in 2011, and no one knew how to interpret it because it was worded in such a way. Everything was so ambiguous, so no one knew what rules they had to follow. Of course, there were instructions which were in italic, which meant stuff was mandatory, which meant that you had the right to have a shower on your own. You had the right to have a plastic bowl to wash your clothes separately from the other prisoners. And in some prisons, you had a right to have a cell to your own, a single cell, mainly for your own safety.
Yeah, but the thing about it is, which is I found shocking anyway, for a long time, say since the 70s, because I can remember I can't remember her name. There was a trans woman who went on television and showed the whole procedure, the transformation. Back then, you had to live as a woman for 2 years before they'd even give you anything. But you could always legally, and this is still true now, demand attention or demand therapy or counselling because but you didn't get any of that, did you? And 2011, I mean, after the 70s, that counselling was there, so they should have known about it.
But adding Cookie, I'm not going to put all the blame at the foot of the prison. That would be really lazy of me, right? I had issues myself, because, like I say, I have a borderline personality disorder. It's dogged my whole life. It's like coloured everything I do, every decision I make, and most things that I say. Until only recently, where I've been offered some amazing, fantastic aftercare from my probation service. They've been amazing in supporting me and getting me more therapy. When I was ready to do therapy, they were ready to give it to me, but I wasn't ready. But the problem I had was with the gender clinic. as you said beforehand, you had to do 2 years enroll before before they'd even like see you, kind of thing. So it was for us, but one, I was impatient, and two, I just wanted the same rights as anybody else outside, because what the gender clinic said was that I would have to enroll as a woman outside of prison for a minimum of 2 years, but no one was talking about parole. No one was talking about parole, and I was getting older, and the older I got, any kind of surgery would be even more dangerous as my chronological years increased. The older I got, the more risk there was to me. So I thought, you know what? If you're not going to help me, I'll do it myself. And that's it wasn't. I mean, I can flippantly say that it was impulsive, you know, but I mean, I thought about it, and I kind of planned it as much as I could.
You see,
I couldn't really get much information from the library, like Grey's Anatomy books and stuff like that. I mean, people had sent me stuff. I had a rough idea of what I was doing, and in the end, I said, "Fuck it!" I just got a prison razor blade and just went to town and just did it.
You see, this is where I have the problem with the prison system. You see, is because you're in an environment where it takes something like that, something extreme like that to happen before they even begin to try and deal with these problems or even discuss them properly. You know,
Cookie,
that's what does my head in about this prison system. You see.
But Cookie, quickly tell, because she won't know what your extreme experience was. Quickly tell her what you had to do to get into a mental health unit to get help, because they won't know.
Well, I was a life sentence prisoner. I was in for murder. I started off in Durham jail. They locked us up with four serial killers. I got one of them to help us escape by cutting me throat. That was Dennis Nielsen. Then I went to Wormwood Scrubs after that for 3 years. Then I went to Parkhurst for a couple of years, and then I went to Grendon, and that's where I got help at Grendon.
Can I ask you some questions?
Aye.
You ready? Yeah, you don't have to disclose that to me if you don't want to, right? Yeah, Grendon. I know Grendon really well. I hate it. I hate the whole concept of it. Right? I know of 60 people who've been to Grendon considered to be successes and have gone to rape and murder other people. And Widdicombe contacted me about it. Right?
Aye.
The thing is, Grendon's just fucking insane. I was there. Was you there for the murder?
Did it happen on Earwing?
There was the murder. It was on my wing. The guy was in my group. The biggest, hardest guy in the prison killed the smallest, weakest person. What does that say?
What were you on?
I can't even remember the name of the wing now. It used to be the really bad sex offender wing, and now I think they moved it to A wing. They swapped the wings around. Because when the prisoners left, they took all the tiles from the floor as well and out their cells.
Well, it's a complete opposite to my experience that I had there, you know. I'm not sure what going on about people going around and getting released from Grendon and killing and raping people.
Yeah, well, they weren't released from Grendon.
I'm sure that's happened.
Sorry.
But I know that a lot of it are really, when it comes to offending behaviour, are really successful. And it's when you leave Grendon, it's where you go from. Like, I had to go back into the prison system, right?
Where
so all them boundaries and all that stuff. I mean, you know what it's like in Grendon. I don't know what your experience is. You know, it might have been a negative one, you know, because it does feel quite negative around all the issues and stuff, especially with me. It was with me, I know that. But it was the aftercare for me. I mean, I was lucky. I got a Recani C card, but it's what happens when you leave Grendon. You see, that's where where reoffending can happen. You see, it's what happens afterwards. So,
I think it depends what your motivation was to go there in the first place. I mean, my motivation really, because I'm really quite nosy, and I was in the system for a long time. There was a few of my friends already there, and people used to say if you went to Grendon, you could do like 2 years and be out. And now I know that to be rubbish now, yeah, right. So you got to do a minimum of 18 months, and then everyone has to say that you're ready and finished. I mean, so I understand that. But the thing is, I first heard about Grendon back in the 1980s. I was in Winson Green Prison Library, and I read this book by Genders and Player. Do you know it, on Grendon Underwood?
I don't. I've not seen it, no.
And one of the questions that was being posed was why Grendon Underwood didn't have more prisoners, of people of colour, black people. Why it didn't have them. And it was just laden with pure racism, saying that black people don't learn from their mistakes in the same way that white people do. This is a book that was written, right? These people were seen as flipping heroes. Now, when I went to Grendon Underwood, and they start, and I understand there were many damaged people there, and there was nowhere else for them to go. I understand that. The problem is that a lot of people that I knew who went there, when you're on the therapy groups, there was one kind of attitude. There was one way that we all related to each other. But as soon as the therapy was over, we was back on the wing, back upstairs, like back up to our old skullduggery, the backstabbing, the gossiping, until we had the murder of Bobby Quillo. Do you know what I mean? It just got chaotic. Maybe it was just happened.
That happened after I had left the place, I got to see it. But it wasn't like that on my wing, you see. I think, you see, what happens on them wings, right, is that at any given time, it depends on how strong the therapeutic element of the wing that's on the wing compared to the criminal element, because you need both there for it to work, you see. And so, and a lot of the time, if that criminal element is far stronger than the therapeutic one, and the facilitators and therapists don't pick up on it, that's where you get a lot of crap happening up on the lands. That wasn't happening on my wing, because
Cookie,
a lot of were just...
I found it combative.
Yes,
I was told that the combat was the therapy. And the therapeutic feedback.
My group members used to say it to me, we're sick of you, Cookie. We're absolutely sick to death of you, because it's like pulling teeth trying to get you to own anything. And that's what I was like all the time, because I didn't understand, and that's what Grendon is not easy. It is really...
No, it was the hardest. I will say this with all... I mean, I've had lots of bad shit happen in my life. I was in Grendon for 12 months. By the time I left there, I'd got to be chairperson of my wing. And then I managed to get myself made so unpopular, they voted me out because I couldn't keep my mouth shut with my BPD. But, you know, I left from there. I took a lot from there. But, you know, the old idea of combat... can I give you an example of something that did happen on my wing?
Yeah, as long as you don't mention any names.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
So, I'm on a wing. There's 40 prisoners, including me, two prison officers and 2 psychologists and a psychiatrist, and I think a couple of visitors from a therapeutic community in the Netherlands. So we're all sitting around, and the chairman puts his hand up. He says, someone wants a minute in the book. You know the procedure, yeah, Cookie, yeah? They want their minute to say something. So they've got one of these, like, the Escort soft porn magazine, the DVD things off the cover. Someone had found one. It had been hidden on the wing. The cleaner had found it, brought it to the group. So we're all sitting around. And this woman who used to work there, she used to come in, like, even once she was retired, this old lady. And she just challenged everyone. She said, who does this belong to? And everyone said like nothing. Everyone put their heads down except me. I just started giggling. Just had to stop laughing, right? So I started giggling. I mean, I used to work for rent. I was the rent boy. That stuff don't shock me, right? So like the woman, this old lady, she must have been like 70 odd. She said, "Who in this room likes to masturbate and read pornography?"
Oh,
And how many hands went up out of 40 prisoners?
all of them, probably.
No, just me. I was the only one who put my hand up. But you know what? The old lady put her hand up too.
But
you know what I mean? I wasn't made for Grendon. I was okay. You know, I was doing all right. I was just a bit of a liberty taker. You know, if there was a rule to break, you know, I broke it just out of boredom. Really, I wasn't a bad person. I done really bad things to go to jail. And honestly, I've done some awful things in prison. But, you know, I took a lot from Grendon. I'll give you that, Cookie. I did. It makes me think a lot more than I ever did before.
That's what I'm saying. That's where, I mean, for me, it sort of like, it helped me to start caring about the community that I lived in instead of hating on it. You know,
I hate to admit it, but you are right. You're right. I hate to admit that.
You know, and that it really did, and that made a big difference to me, you know. And it wasn't just that; it helped us. I mean, the messed up relationships and stuff and friendships that I used to have, you know, I didn't even know how my friendships were criminalized and all that, you know, and how easily I was manipulated, stuff like that. It really brought that awareness to me, you know.
Did the psychologists or psychiatrists make any diagnosis on you?
No, I'm not being diagnosed with now because I wouldn't talk to a doctor properly about stuff going on in my head. In case they try to put us on medication. And then the parole board would say, "Oh, he's still a risk because he's got to be on medication, and if he doesn't manage his medication, problems like because there's always prejudice against people who've got mental health issues.
Absolutely.
So that's why the system encourages you to hide your mental health issues because you've got less chance of getting parole, stuff like that. You know, and that's my problem with this prison system. The environment that it is just abusive and is so rigid that it can't evolve into anything. Anything that's fit for purpose.
Now, what I want to do, I'm going to jump in here because we're getting into Grendon and all that. It's supposed to be about prison reform. But what I want to do is, Cookie, pick up on what you've just been saying, because what that actually led you to, wasn't it, was a passion for prison reform because it worked with you positively. And I asked you the question, I said, what would have happened if you'd never gone to Grendon? And you said you would have come out and started reoffending. Because you literally wouldn't have known. As you said, you weren't recognizing where things went wrong. Now, what I want to go on to is this, where the problems are in prisons and your view of where the problem is in prisons and how you actually get to trying to resolve it and cure us. So I'll let you start, Cookie, on how and the need for prison reform. What is the basic needs you see?
Well, it's all about future victims, isn't it? And lessening the impact and trying to lessen the impact of that vicious criminal circle in and out of prison, you know. But it's every decision that's made in prison, right, is security dominated. So that makes everything feel oppressive. Right, but the problem that they've got, right, is that they've got loads of different personalities in that prison, loads of different criminals who are, you know, with strong, with proper criminal values. And how do they tackle that? You know, so it can feel like a double-edged sword of the prison system. You know, I mean, even like to get trainers in prison is hard work, right? Because you're not allowed them posted in, right? It encourages bullying them. So if you've got a decent pair of trainers on, right, and there's scarce for trainers in the prison, you could get bullied for your trainers, right? So that's how these rules affect prisoners. Whereas if the reason why they stop you from having prisoners, trainers, is because somebody got drugs smuggled in the trainers and got caught and abused that. Well, you sort of expect that from criminals. But if you've got a good community, good security system in place, which they more or less have all the time, they catch the drugs coming in. So when that happens, security come in, close everything down, and anything that's helping the regime, they stop. You know, and that's where the whole issue needs to be tackled, where security should not be getting their own way with dominating every decision that's made in prison. You know?
What do you think, though? Can you put your head in the security?
Drugs is a really big issue, right? I've seen people destroy their lives with drugs in prison, right? Especially spice. It's really nasty, I know, but it's really addictive. I know, because I couldn't get off it for ages. I must have spent $6,000 on this drug, spice. The things I did to get it, I mean, I'm not going to say I humiliated myself, because I was in prison doing life, you know, and, you know, I didn't feel that I had much dignity. I was just surviving. But people at
I agree.
Prison officers are scared of prisoners when they're on drugs. They're scared of us.
Yeah, yes. I mean,
they
you
need
see,
to make
with the drug issue in prison,
costs.
it's really, really hard to make a drug-free environment where it's just this, where there's no drug, where no drugs can get into that community, into that prison environment. You know.
But Cookie, can I just ask something here, because this fascinates me, and I might be completely wrong, because unless you've been in prison, unless you've been in that particular prison, you don't know. You can only guess or what's going on. But I always got the view, or held the view, of in prisons that they allowed certain amount of drugs in so that the inmates wouldn't be totally uncontrollable. Or have I got that totally wrong? By what you're saying, Sid, it sounds like I've got that totally wrong.
No, I think there's something in that, because prison officers come to my cell and they used to see me taking heroin, and they didn't even want to bother getting involved. Because I'd make life a misery, you know. I was doing life. What are they going to do to me? And then as I got later into my sentence and I was taking spice and they knew I was taking drugs openly, I mean, what are they going to do to someone who removed their own testicles with a prison razor blade? They're not going to come near me. They don't come near me. If they think anyone needs drugs, they know it's going to be me.
So what's your views on it then? The two of your views on, should they stop drugs going into prison, or should they just allow, let's say, softer drugs, you know, like a bit of skunk or whatever, to just relax and because
I think cannabis oil would, swapping methadone and stuff with cannabis oil would be a really good start.
Yeah.
Should I say but like, what gets me about the drug issue, right, is the drugs get into the prison, right? Now, prisoners smuggle drugs in on visits and stuff and all that. Well, our visitors, right, gone through a right ordeal getting into the prison to visit with and stuff and that, you know? And
it's not just prisoners bringing it in.
No. And at the end of the day,
I had loads of people bringing it in, and they weren't prisoners.
That's right. And the drugs most of the drugs that do come into prison are brought in by staff. And that's
really.
Yeah. I'll have to get someone up.
The prisoners visitors get persecuted for it. When there's a lockdown for it, that ban on the visitors.
Time I brought this up, they shut down my social media. The Prison Officer Association, they shut me down. And they got my probation to warn me, give me a warning letter not to talk about prison officers and stuff that they may or may not have done.
That's disgusting, that. So you can't talk about your experiences.
Yeah.
Even though you are campaigning. Let's point this out to people. Sarah does campaign, don't you, for reform in prison?
Absolutely.
That's
but you can't have the people, right? You. It's like, I'm going to be generous. You take a man or a woman from the street, or someone who's non-binary, take them from the street, right? and they got no qualifications at all. You put a uniform on them. You tell them they are now a servant of the crown. That's their job. And their job is to protect the subjects, to protect the citizens. That's the first step of the dehumanizing, right? And during training, they feed them this mantra: believe nothing, question everything. So how can the system rehabilitate you in one breath,
Right.
and in the next minute, if you step out of line, you'll get 10 prison officers, I don't kick your head in. It doesn't make no sense, does it? Like, you can't be the punisher and then the rehabilitator. You can't be I don't think prison officers know what their role is. Is it as a jailer? Is it a social worker?
Well, that's a brilliant point you're making there, Sid. I'm glad you made that point. It's what you've said is spot on. What is actually the role of you get the same with the police, right? The police in America, it's so much easier, even though it's more brutal over there in places. You know that a police officer's a law enforcer. They couldn't care less whether you've got mental health problems, whether you've got problems with your girlfriend, or whether you've got problems with this one, that one. Their job is to stop crime and to arrest you if you commit a crime. Here, it sort of goes into a pseudo counselor, and also there's a lot of political pressure, which you've described by them closing down your social media. There's political pressure because the Home Office doesn't want you coming out with this.
I mean, this is what you see. Prison officer training is 6 weeks training. I think it's now, and they're on the wings. You know, I mean, the lot of things have been said about how prison officers should be trained, and it really should be a profession, a proper profession, where you go into the prison service and
a
you
vocation.
Have to study. It's part of your job to study and get more qualifications. And that rate of pay, you know, I mean, either should get a normal rate of pay, a good rate of pay, you know, but depending on reoffending rates from that prison, they should be getting bonuses and everything for that, man. They should be motivated in trying to reduce reoffending. And training is really, really important. You know, to become a fully qualified prison officer today, to meet today's standards, it should be a 4-year training thing where you're doing psychology, where you're learning to articulate yourself in a positive way. Your communication skills are on there, where you've got a proper, because the prison officers need support. When you're dealing with a crappy end of the stick every day, day in, day out, with no change at all, that hits the psyche like mad. And I feel sorry for the prison officers.
Shall I tell you something though?
They didn't get trained. They haven't got a clue what they're walking into. And when they leave the job, they walk away with depression, health problems, the lot. And that's the government just...
Cookie, that's their choice. That's a choice they make. That's a choice they make. When people are in prison, a lot of people are in prison not for a choice they make, because they're ill. There are so many mentally ill people in prison. There are so many people on the autistic spectrum. There's so many people with Asperger's, and they're rotting in them systems, and they can't get out because they're trapped, because they don't know how to engage. They don't know how to engage with a system that has lost about a third of its staff in the last 10 years.
But what I want to say...
There's courses there, there's education there, but there's no staff to let them out.
But what I want to add to this, Cookie, is...
Sorry, I'm getting emotional.
It's an emotional topic. It's an emotional topic. What I find about what you're saying about the prison officers training and all that, now that's what you've got happening in police forces. They're having to go to police colleges and learn it. Now, the problem with that, and this is what the police always said, there's no way, and it's true, I went through training before I joined the police. You had to go through all your training, and I remember they kept on saying, right, they said, guess what? Oh, by the way, it wasn't a police officer, it was a station keeper. Now, you had to do all your training now to deal with difficult situations and all this, and the law and all this business. And I remember the old timers used to say, forget it, the minute you get on there, it's a different job altogether. That will be useless. And do you know what, Cookie? It was true. Until you're put in there, you cannot learn in a college. It just won't learn you. And someone told me, a very old Bobby, he said they actually used to look at people's degrees and they take them on by the degrees. Oh, yeah, you've got a good degree, you're intelligent. That's when degrees actually meant something. And they'd actually take them on. They stopped looking at the degrees because they said they had too many cases where someone would have a great degree and they'd be hopeless when they put them out on the beat or would they put them in the stations. So they went by life experience. In other words, they saw what the person had done in their life, and that's what would be the priority. Now it's gone back to training. So training can do certain things. It can do certain things. But from what I've heard from police, prison officers, is that the real issue is there's not enough of them. And they don't get back up. And that's where the real issue, it's not so much training, which you do need training, it's staff levels. There's not enough.
Aye. But the staffing, it's like, they need staffing levels so they can bully we're doing, so they can push we're behind our door. That's why they need staff. What they need is, it's like the training, when a prison officer comes into the jail and goes working on them landings, that shouldn't be just the end of his training.
Oh, no, I agree with you.
It should be, you should be able to progress in that career as a prison officer.
Cookie. Listen, I love you all, right? But it's idealism, right? The prison system generally, I'm going to guess, right? I don't know. Is that a Newcastle United top behind you?
It is, aye.
Okay, right. I was in Franklin 2.5 years. I know the history of the word Geordie, yeah? The Geordies were used. They were used to fight battles for the kings and stuff, yeah? Was it King George's men?
I like to be named. I like to think that George Stevenson me.
But what I'm saying is that the kings, the elites, and the governments, they've always used the poor to fight battles, to fight wars, to sacrifice their lives. The police force, like the prison service, it was not set up to protect working class people and poor people. It is set up to protect the property of the rich and the elite. And also to keep us in our place. Anyone who really did well, do you know what I mean? Maybe they cut a few corners. They went to jail if they were working class. But if you was an elite, they give you a knighthood or put you in the House of Lords. Do you know what I'm saying? The system, the system is corrupt. The system is rotten from top to bottom. And there's a reason for that, right? The system cannot be seen to fail. And because they haven't got enough staff, they need to control the system with an iron rod, which is why they've cut down on the amount of lockdown, the amount of recreation, the amount of associations I can get. Most prisons in this country, you was entitled to an hour's exercise a day. People are lucky even if they get half an hour.
That's right.
But also the baby deaths that have happened in women's prisons because there was not enough care for these women. And some of the women didn't even they had mental health issues, I'm going to presume, and didn't know how to engage and get what they wanted. I'm an assertive person. I knew how to make the system work for me. And if it didn't work for me, I mean, I'd kick right off or I'd use my pen. I'd write to my member of parliament and I would speak the truth and I would let hopefully the truth never sets.
So what do you see saying? What do you see from what Cookie said about, training and getting the prison officers, which I agree with you, Cookie, in the way that, you do need that training, but asking them to do a course beforehand, I don't think that will ever happen. I don't think it's going to be, that's my personal view, be fully beneficial, but they need ongoing training how to deal with situations. But Sarah, what do you see as being the major issue that needs addressing if you're going to get reform, the major problem, if you could get it down to one problem, like Cookie has just done?
I got a theory. Let me run my theory by you.
Yeah.
Okay, Cookie?
All right.
Keep an open mind, my friend, okay, right? And just listen, yeah? Since I got out of prison, right, every political organisation on the left wing pretty much tried to get their claws into me. They wanted to use me as like their figurehead for prison abolition. But I'm not an abolitionist, but I went along with it for a bit, I said, prison's really bad, destroy the system, patriarchy, ruin all this, this is all this, blah, 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 blah. But you know what? I've grown up a bit. I've got a bit more of a backbone. I was able to stand up to them. Doesn't matter whether it's Prisoner Solidarity Network or Revolutionary Communists or Socialist Work or whatever it is, whatever organisation it is in London, who tried to get hold of me and tried to manipulate me and tried to use me. Do you know what I mean, as a weapon against their prison system? But some of the cases they were getting behind, well, it a lot of people that I know myself in prison, as you know, some really people in for some really dark stuff, I can't just release them on the street, which is what these people who were advocating for. Their advocation, they just wanted prison abolished, open the gates and set them all free. And I'm like, are you insane? That's not going to work. But you know what? How about a rebranding during the training? Rebrand the prison system, right? If you take away the word prison, take away the word Her Majesty's prison as well. So they don't feel like they're going in prison as soldiers, so that they might feel they're going in as like social workers or probation officers who can actually offer something of worth to like the clients.
Oh God, say that.
Positive outcome.
Say that the idea of rebranding prison officers, social workers, my God, no. I mean, social workers, I'm sorry, when you get a good one, you get gold, but there's plenty. You just think, get your head out the clouds and get down to reality.
It's got to be better what's in the system already.
Oh, yeah, but I'm just saying, this is the problem you've got when you start mixing up roles. It's like, well, what are you getting? I mean, I do understand that there's a need. There's definitely a need for retraining. There's definitely need for redoing it. But maybe it should be that there's, I don't know, see what you think, that there's prison guards who keep the security going. But there's also, well, you do have other members of staff there, but there's other members of staff who are like the ones that integrate and talk to, and because there's library staff and all that, they're not prison guards, are they, in all this business? So there could be like two levels. Like you have in the police, you have the police and the extended police family. Which
they do have that sort of thing going on, because they've got the psychologists in the prisons, and they've got probation officers in the prisons, they've got drug counsellors in the prisons, but it's just the way it all run. It's just you kind of get any treatment because of the system, because of the environment that you're living in.
You go to do therapy for 9 months, and then you go back into the cell when they lock the door and say, "Shut your mouth." And
yeah. That's it.
Right. I mean, there's a couple of issues. You see, you've got like the public want to see when people commit a crime that are punished for that crime. You see, right now, the justice system does that very well when they send you to prison. But however, they do it that well. Right, and it's creating more victims.
Absolutely.
So there's two issues there. There's the moral issue, right, and how the prison system is creating.
But it shows how unsophisticated our society is. But it also shows how unsophisticated, like the human mind is, because I understand the need for punishment. It is something which is almost in every human being. If someone hurts you, you want someone to pay. You want someone to be held to account. But if I commit a crime, sending me to prison, that doesn't hold me to account. It makes me more bitter and twisted, because I know that when I go in there, the prison officers don't care what I did. My prison officers don't care about the system. They don't care about the victims on that end. They care about getting their paycheck and going home. And me keeping my mouth shut and getting behind my door on time.
That's on time.
See, I think I've always said this, and it's not my idea. It's been around for decades and seen people do more successfully. Is that depending on what the crime is and who the individual is? Because there's some people who are so volatile and so criminal-minded, if you want to use that term, that they need locking up, and they need locking up for a long, long time. But when you've got someone and it's social circumstances, it's the circumstances of money, who they're mixing with and whatever, I think the best thing that can happen is to get them out into the community and working in the community. Now, I've seen some amazing results of people actually doing the sentence in the community. And especially when they're working with people in need, real need, it suddenly awakens, not everyone, but it wakes up a lot of them. It's like, wait a minute, what am I complaining? And it gives them something to aim for. And they actually end up going into that
But
job.
they're not the people who need the most help. The people who
Yeah.
need the most help are the people who are really messed up. And you know what? Hold on. Come on, let me jump in the deep end here, right? Because everyone asked me about this. Yeah, what if they killed this person? What if they killed 10 people? My brother got murdered in 1994. Do you know? I wanted that person to be slaughtered, hung, drawn, and quartered. But you know what? I had to look at myself in the mirror and say, look at the things that I've done. Do you know what I mean? I had to look in the mirror and say, how can I judge someone else when I've done some really bad stuff? But the thing is, you say to put them in prison for a really, really long time. No, how about we remove them from society and we place them in an environment which is not called prison, where they are encouraged from day one. I think Utrecht has their clinic over there, which is similar to Grendon. So, I mean, if you've got somebody who's murdered somebody, putting someone in jail for 5 years, 10 years, or 30 years will make no difference. They could, if they can't learn it in a year, if they can't learn in say 10 years, they're not going to learn in 30.
So, what do you call this new building that keeps people locked up but isn't a prison?
We're going to call it the
Pretty Bunny Place.
No.
Well, that's what I'm seeing.
I'm serious, right? I'm not making light of this, right? Because
No, it could
we know at the
be.
moment.
No, what I'm
prison's
saying.
bad.
No,
We get
what
a lot
I'm
of
saying,
suicides in
Sarah.
prison, and
What
a lot
I'm
of
saying,
people are being
Sarah,
hurt.
What I'm saying, Sarah, is people come up with these ideas, right? And it's like, but what it is, it's not feasible. It really isn't feasible, and it becomes like, let's change the name. And that's what I'm saying, not insulting, it's let's change the name. And it's like the IPCC when it changed its name to the IOPC, the police watchdog. I said, well, why don't you just call yourself the Pretty Bunny People, Pink Bunny People? I said, because it's exactly the same thing. You've just changed the name. I said,
The thing is, it has a psychological effect on people. This is what my belief, right? So, for example, if the army's called the army, people that I know wanted to join the army. They wanted to join the army. They wanted to shoot people. But if we said, you know what, do you want to join the peacekeeping force? But you're not allowed to have a gun or nothing like that, right? But you're just going to be nice and make peace, like me, for Britain. Do you know what I mean? We're gonna be a force of peace. People ain't going to want that. A lot of people I know, they want to jump in and they want to get the gun. They want to do the training. They want to drive the tanks and fly the planes and bomb people. People are really amazing. They are amazing, and I don't feel comfortable, right? I don't feel comfortable with the stuff I've done, but I'm not going to let it stop me from saying I don't feel comfortable with the way that I'm seeing some people. Some of these people who've done some of the most horrendous crimes are really, really ill, and they would be in a hospital if this was a humane country, but it's not.
You see, the thing is with the hospitals, and I do get. I mean, we know from statistics that when you look at prisoners and they've done these no analysis, there's a huge amount of mental health issues. Definitely mental health. They go on about drugs. It's more mental health issues. Actually, that's the issue. They definitely don't need to be locked up but you get cabin fever, don't you? That will destroy your mind even more if you're going through that. But this is what you were saying, Cookie, wasn't it? Introduce it into the prison system itself. Instead of having, let's say, a Grendon that's separate, the whole prison itself is structured to deal with this issue. Because there's another thing about hospitals as well. When someone's sent to a hospital, it's like, oh, you're ill. Sometimes mental illness, and this is what I used to always say, mental illness, when it's called an illness, it's an illness you can be cured of. But a lot of time, a mental condition with the person, and I've got high function autism, mental issue with the person can be a part of their personality. And it's not going to be cured. It's not going to go away. It's their personality. But it's just that the person needs help and needs support. when doing certain things or in certain situations. But that's the problem. I think the hospitals today, when someone's really in breakdown, like you were, Cookie, you were ready to commit, take your own life. Then you need the hospitals because you can be brought out of that. But as you said, Sarah, there must be a lot of people on the autism scale. There must be a lot of people on the autism scale.
And I said I would put up, right, that a third of the prison system, right, are there because of just broken spirits.
Yeah.
Right? Just broken people, right? Who've had maybe traumatic divorces, really bad childhoods. So I mean, gone through really bad stuff. But you've got the other people there for addiction issues, which is a medical issue.
Yeah.
So I mean, the prison system, rather than giving somebody legal drugs, do you know what I mean? Which might cost, I don't know, say 10 grand a year. They'd spend 60 grand a year to keep someone in prison.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just don't
it
make
is
it.
ridiculous.
Or crimes of poverty. There are greedy people, but most people on the whole, I mean, there's about a third of people can't read and write to the age of to the level of a 5-year-old child.
Yeah.
That's a scandal. In my eyes, I was really shocked even when I heard that when I was in prison.
Well, this is it's and this they keep on going on. Oh, it's in modern times it's changed. It hasn't really, and it's like when the horrible old days at the Balsals. I mean, I remember them, the Balsals. Someone would just say Balsals and be horrific, but the thing was that those children, when you'd see some of these youths that went into these Balsals, you could tell the vast majority there was something you could see. You just think, wait a minute. This isn't just someone that's done a bad thing. This is someone that really doesn't know or can't control their actions when they're doing them a lot of the time.
My father was in Borstal in 1959 for 2 years. He beat a man after death with a boat oar.
Yeah. Oh,
and when he got out of prison, all he did was torture his children. That's all he did. Torture his children and his wives.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's all he did. I heard other stories about why my dad was so crazy. I mean, both my parents are dead now. I mean, my mum died when I was in prison. My father died when I got out. But I'll tell you what, the suicides, you know what I mean? The last prison I was in, Lewis down by Brighton, we had 22 suicides in the time I was there. Now I was there for over 5 years. But that's still a lot when you're living there. There was 50 suicides on the Sheppey cluster, between Elmley and Swellside. 50. The first 10 made the press. The next 40 didn't even make the local news. Didn't even make the local radio. A human life in prison is not really. It's not really been worth much. You know, it's worth 30 grand a year. You know, to keep for a prison officer to keep you in. They're not interested in getting you out. They're just the prison officers are interested in just see, if they keep you in prison and they don't recommend you for parole and they don't give you no courses, they don't have to do no reports, no recommendations to get you out. They have to do, if you're ready to get out of jail, they got to do reports to recommend you to get out. Some prison officers don't know the difference between an adjective and noun and a plural.
Now, Sarah, let's hold on because that's another important one. Now, I wouldn't know that. Only people who've been through the system wouldn't know that. Hold on, my dog's going to take
my squeaky ball off him. Bobby,
God, of this, my little fella.
Sorry.
Beauty. Little beauty. Yeah, now, people who haven't been through the prison system wouldn't know that. Now, holding on to that, what's from the two of you that want this? What's the solution to that scenario you've just pointed out there? What is the solution to this? What checks do you think there should be? Some kind of outside checks done to make sure that things aren't being bypassed or lazy assistance setting in or whatever?
Well, it's definitely laziness. They never answer the cell bells, and they never do that 15-minute obs on whoever's on a 2052. Constant obs. They'll do constant obs once you've cut yourself to bits and you're threatening to kill yourself. But
They used to say, if you're going to kill yourself, do it when I'm not on duty, so I don't have to do the paperwork.
Oh, God.
Mm.
God. But what would be the solution to that, do you think? Or how could you work around it to ensure that that doesn't happen?
I think that the system needs to be a lot more transparent. At the moment, we do have like prison inspectors who are paid for by the Ministry of Justice, but we do have them border visitors. But a lot of the border visitors that I know, border visitors, they've been around since the days of Newgate Prison, and they've pretty much, I think on the whole, they pretty much used to sit on the fence. But the thing is, back in like the 1940s, the border visitors, they were the ones who gave you punishment when you went down the SIG unit. It's like border visitors,
Right,
and they can stop you, but they give you bread and water. 3 days off, 3 days on,
and they've got a bad reputation because of it all.
Yeah. And these are the people supposed to be inspecting and reporting to the Ministry of Justice. So we know the Ministry of Justice is fully aware of all these issues within the system. But we need money. The system needs money. It needs a lot of money and lots of resources and lots of... I think maybe they could start with giving people like some decent money outside. So it might stop them committing crimes, and it might stop them getting so angry that they just lash out. A lot of people that I know, it's because of money, just a lack of it.
Oh, that's the biggest thing, especially in today's society, because you expect, you would consider worthless unless you've got this, got that, the other. But what the whole route, which is a political thing really, and I think anyone can see this, you need jobs on the ground. When you've got people working, I tell you now, then you've got a better system going, because they can actually, because I think there's too much of this. People living off benefits, whatever, and it becomes like that's the life. That's going to run someone into trouble eventually, run them into trouble. But you need
more benefits, so more less time.
Living on benefits is bad for your mental health, and the government still want it.
Well, the thing is,
people out with a heat because they're living on benefits.
Yeah, but this is it. Yeah, the prison system, I know that, I think we can all agree, it doesn't work. It's not set up. It's just like throw people in there. And there's also this thing that you hear nearly, well, I've never heard a prisoner not say it. You go into prison and they come out a better equipped criminal if they want to be, because they've learned off other prisoners how you do things. And that's
what makes you better equipped when you come out, all it is that you become emotionally more toughened. And you've got more resolve in you because your emotional experience in prison to commit further crimes.
Yeah, that's definitely
prison must work because we're still out.
Some people. So, do you know what? Actually, you've said something there. You've just said something.
My tongue is so deep in my cheek, it's down my throat.
Do you know what? You've just said something that's just. When you have that moment where you think that's just taking me back to something. I remember someone saying that to me once, saying it must work because look, or I said it to them because I said, look what's happened. Oh, what was it? We were talking about something and they were going on and said, but wait a minute, said, your evidence that it does work. And they were like, what do you mean? And so I said, well, the way you're talking, I said, you're cured, you're whatever. I said, you're reformed. I said, so it must be working if it's worked with you. It was something to do with. It was something to do with crime.
I'm sure there is there'll be a number there of people who didn't reoffend once have been to prison once. But it's very few, very. But
I grew out of it.
And the amount of victims
I know
through the jail, and then within a week. I mean, I know people who get through the Parkhurst, getting on the train to come back to Liverpool, and they get the 10 stretch for assaulting someone on the train.
Yeah, it is
and I've
ridiculous.
seen them 6 months later, 12 months later.
Prison makes you angry. It should make you angry.
You know,
it's insane in there.
But do you know it? That I remembered what it was now. It was I think it was Cody Lackey. That's the name we haven't heard.
Yeah, he got me called back from the Tulse Hill Hostel, bail hostel. Yeah.
But he was.
Not Cody Lackey. No, Peppy Watson. I'm thinking of. He got recalled.
Oh, Pepsi Watson. Yeah, he got.
Yeah, Pepsi.
Yeah. He was going on, And actually, I think I was talking about Pepsi Watson as well at the time. And they were going on about, oh, prisons don't work and all this. And I said, because at the time
you're out.
I was getting wound up, right, saying by all this. We're wonderful. We're great. We're going to tell everyone. We're going to tell the youth. We're reform characters. We're. And it was all very narcissistical. So I turned around and said, well, why do we need to change? Because if it's producing wonderful icons like you, I said, that are going to change the world. I said,
don't put me on that list. I beg you. Don't.
No, I don't.
Don't put me on no pedestal. I fall really fast, really quick, quite often.
Well, I just want to. I want to raise the moral issue. The moral issues about what's going on in the prison system, and
there's no moral issue in there. There's no morals. There's no. It's not based on ethics. It's based on money.
Fighting crime to stop victims from happening and keeping people in prison to protect the public, to protect future victims. But when they let them move, and that's the moral issue for me.
Can I tell you something? Back in the 1980s, I knew someone, a friend of my family, and he had this hat, and it had a badge on it, and it said Wacken Hut. It's a security company in America. They used to manage prisons, yeah? So I said to the guy, was you a prison officer? He kind of went, I don't really want to say. But I'd forgotten about it because I was a child. But when I went into prison, I remember, I got to induction. And this is when I was younger, I couldn't really read or write, So I said, well, I want to do education. They said, yeah, but you only get a few quid doing education, but you'll get 20 odd pounds if you work for this private company, which has managed to infiltrate the prison system, which has got, I won't use their names, right? But they set up all these private workshops throughout the prison system using prisoners as labor. And he says you can't earn more than £25 a week for doing a full week's work for a private company. Do you know what I mean?
Cookie, you've turned your camera, your thing off. Cookie, we can't hear you.
Well, that's what they've done at the minute, haven't they? They brought in economic slavery into the prison. They've actually passed a law now where outside people can employ you in prison. Pay the prison loads of money, and the prison pay you peanuts.
But can I tell you some of the names of the companies?
I've just got to put this here. I've got to swap my power source away because me.
Okay.
Go for it, Sarah.
I've got Bobby. He's paddling a dynamo to keep my phone going. No, I'll tell you one. Yeah, Deborah Meaden.
Deborah Meaden.
Virgin Atlantic.
Oh, I can. Yeah.
They're all use them, for recycling stuff and stuff, A lot of recycling.
Can you share this?
The Disney company.
But this is
making toys.
Well, we're getting the American system right, because in America, do you know what was called the biggest slavery? The biggest slavery system in the world is the American penal system. The biggest, where they have to work
limousines, number plates.
Well, I bring it into this country because we're going to get economically poorer in this country. So they're building more jails because they're going to put more people away for committing petty crimes. Because they're not going to, they're opening up day-card prisons and making it, but none of the people who need to go to these places have ever gone there. It's just for people who are going to have economic problems in the future, going to commit crimes, and they're going to be put in jail, and they're going to be made into economic slaves. Because when you got into jail...
But what if our whole system outside of prison was based on socialism, yeah? I'm not talking communism, I'm talking socialism, right? Where you do have to give a shit... Sorry. Where you do have to care about the workers. You do have to care about the people right at the bottom.
Yeah.
It's your obligation as a human being.
Do you remember the 70s?
Yeah, absolutely. The 3-day week.
You don't remember the 70s.
Of course I do. I was born in 1969.
Well, oh dear, you're 10 years older than me.
Yeah, all rats running down
my dream.
Everyone was on strike.
This is it. That's what I'm saying.
James Callaghan.
Yeah, socialism suddenly turns just as bad. Well, not as bad, but it's you know, it can have its issues as well. But this thing, well, Case has just said something very interesting. We were working for Halfords. We had to pack all the car brushes and stuff. Now, I didn't know this was going on.
Yeah.
You see, you don't know,
They
do
get
you?
£10 a
You
week
know
for it.
now.
How much? £10 an hour?
£10 a week.
A week?
Yeah, a week. Yeah.
20 a
so
day.
£7
Now
a
this,
It's a
now
really
this
good
is
job
why,
for 20.
and this is why there's no jobs on the outside, because
No,
it
but
just
the thing is,
employ.
the Isle of Sheppey, right? They was short of staff, but they said we don't care if it's short of staff or what. Just make sure the workshops are open, because every prisoner in there, I think they were getting something like, the company was paying £125 for every prisoner. The prisoner was getting 25, and the prison was getting £100 for every prisoner that goes into the workshops,
Yeah.
including the privatization of prison laundries.
God, that's shocking, man. So it's literally
Prisoners were
slave
being
labor.
employed in prison laundries for £65 a week, and then there was such an outrage. You have to work a full day's work in a prison laundry which is run by a private company and owned by a private company. I mean, and you got to work for them for like £25 a week or something.
Yeah, that's absolutely disgusting.
You're not there to be rehabilitated. You're there to put a few quid in the system's pocket to keep the system going.
Well, that's what this.
It really is bad. I mean, you've got. I mean, I worked when I first come into the system, the slavery thing, right? I was working in a freezer packing chicken, right? Now I was getting 90 bar a week for doing that, right? But I was having to work from 8 o'clock in the morning to 7 o'clock at night for 90 bar a week, right? And I done that like 6 days a week. I done that. That was so I could have a bit of money saved up for me home leaves and stuff like that, you know. But the governors and the prison officers didn't like it and said they're getting too much money. So the governor stopped it.
That's the con, though, right? That's the con, yeah. So what you do is you end up working hard and paying for your own imprisonment with that, right? But the public have been somehow convinced that, and even the prisoners themselves, right? They're like, oh, I don't need to read and write. I need some money so I can get some drugs. So they get a job in the workshop. They allow themselves to be exploited. They allow themselves to be trapped in that system, right? Because the harder you work, if you work really hard, they don't want to give you parole.
No, they don't.
If you're a hard worker, they don't want to write a report and say you're an amazing human being. Yet you're being conditioned to believe that work makes the person. It makes you a better person if you do a hard day's work. It's a con.
The government have brought it in. This is what the government have brought it in under the guise of that it's going to help prisoners get a CV, right?
Yeah.
They're going to be able to prove that they're employable, and it's going to help them not reoffend when they're released, make them more employable when they're released, and reduce reoffending.
Yeah, that they can pack stuff in the box.
That's the real reason why they're bringing it in this year.
But the thing is, there's no jobs. There's no jobs for them to go out to.
But for the people who had ability, they even withdraw the kind of the access to. It used to be quite. It wasn't complicated. It's like if you was able to get your GCSEs and get your AS levels, get your A level right, and then whack him right, try and get yourself a grant so you can do your first 10-point at Open University, right? They stripped that. They made it so difficult to get funding to even if you had a brain and the education in the prison system said, you know what, you're intelligent enough to do amazing things, and they were really encouraging. You get to this ceiling where you can't get any higher. They let you get an A level, but they won't let you get a degree because you can't get the $9,000.
Well, it's not just the money either, right? It's because the prison service are so dumb. If they didn't understand what you're studying, they'll stop you from studying it.
I want to study law. They said I couldn't study law.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Said it was a security risk or something. Because
the thing is, I could do 80% I could do 80% of a law degree while I was in prison. The other 20%, I would have needed like a laptop, or I would have needed to go outside. I would have needed to go to lectures and stuff. But they went, no, wait. And the thing is, I'd managed to I had the money at that time. I'd managed to find all the money I needed to do it. And then the system just went, nah, you stay in your place. You know your place, you.
So,
Well,
Cookie,
it should be robust enough to be able to deal with that situation in a positive way.
Did you try to, Cookie, though, access education in prison?
I tried to do. I was doing computer programming. I was learning C++, and it got to the stage where the prison were concerned that I was becoming a security risk.
Oh, because of the
code. That's it.
Hey, Cookie, do it change me.
But
it is brain dead, the system. I gotta say, it is.
Jesus changed me. I've become a Christian, and my life changed like magic.
Oh, it's wonderful, isn't it?
Anything else?
It's wonderful, isn't it? How the Lord does all this. Oh God, I better not get on that subject, because I upset people when I get on that subject to do. I say, oh, here we are, Disneyland. But
I believe in the teachings of Jesus Christ. I don't know if there's a God, but I believe in the stuff I read in that book, which told me about looking out for your neighbor and being a good person and having morals and having ethics and thinking about other people. The system taught me that. Do you know what I mean? They taught me that. They drove me almost to insanity. But you know what? Do you know what I mean? I was so down. The only person I could reach out to was this concept of God that I had.
Yeah, lots of people do.
And that's why my life changed. Whether there's a God or not doesn't matter. All I know is something happened, and since then, my life's been a 1,000,000% better than what it was, especially my quality of life, and especially my mental health.
See, so whatever helps you.
It highlights for me just how these dangerous prisoners that are in jail and all that, just how vulnerable they really are.
You know, Bob Mosley in the glass box in Wakefield.
It's a shame what's happened to Bob, man.
Wait a minute, I've just lost the conversation. I don't know the people I've chat. I've lost the stream of it. What were you talking about then, Cookie? Because it's just I couldn't understand what you meant by saying it or what you were referring to. It's frightening. What's frightening?
I don't know.
I know we were talking about.
I was talking about Bob Mosley, Robert Mosley, in his glass cage in the bottom of Wakefield Prison.
Yes, how vulnerable that the violent prisoners and all them prisoners that are in prison right this minute. Is it 100,000 or something new? Right?
Must be touching on that.
How vulnerable that set of people really, really are, you know, and how they're open to all kinds of abuses from all kinds of places.
The poor and the working class are always vulnerable, whether they're inside or out.
And nobody wants to treat them like a human being. Nobody wants to treat them like a human being.
They're one paycheck away from being homeless on the streets because there's nowhere for them to go.
Wait, I'm lost. I'm still lost. Who are we talking about? This person in this down wherever it is. I don't know.
Robert Mosley.
Who's he?
Well, he's
one-off Bob.
He's considered a serial killer. And
a cannibal, they say.
But he's not a cannibal. He didn't.
I know. I'm just saying that's what the press say. That's why he can't get out of that box.
Killed 2 inmates in prison. He went. Did he get life in prison? I can't remember if he got life.
Killed one. He won't mind. I'm sure he won't mind me talking about his case, right? Because he talks to a lot of people that I already know. Do you know what I mean? I think we're in kind of contact with him, 2 people anyway. But he was really violently abused as a little child, then put into care. Then he was sent back to his abusers. Then he ran away. And like me, become a rent boy, probably about the same time as me. Then then he went on. He went on just to killing people who reminded him of the people that abused him, especially his dad. But then while he was in prison, he kept trying to kill people all the time.
He killed 2 people in prison.
Till they sent him to Broadmoor, and
sex
he killed
offenders.
someone in Broadmoor and stuck a spoon in his ear or something. And they say a bit of him, but no, that's not true. It's just the papers.
They keep him in a cage. They keep him in 24-hour.
I have heard of him. Yeah,
he's a bit like Bronson, but Bronson, Charlie's never hurt anybody really, you know. Charlie should be you, but
Charlie's got his own problems
because he's killed 2 people.
Yeah.
Well, you know,
our Charlie's got his own stuff going on. You know what I mean? He's really struggling to get out too.
So, what would you do though? This is the thing. I know you touched on it, so you have answered this about what to do with people who are, let's say, you could classify as being a danger to society if they were let back in society. What's your solution to Cookie when you've got someone that is dangerous? And maybe they can't even help themselves being dangerous. Let's put it that way. They're just totally wired or their experience.
I think for someone like Bob, right, who doesn't have any prospect of getting out, right, that, it's got to be difficult changing emotionally so that you feel all right, so that you're not suffering anymore, so that your behavior is not impacting to the point where you're still that bad person, where you're still the murderer,
But the thing is, right, say that he doesn't. He's not. Some people you have to accept they're always going to be dangerous. No matter what they do. What do we do with them?
It's like
you give them love. You show them love.
That's
you show them care. You give them attention. If they want attention, you give it to them. You don't hold it back because there's no money, there's no resources. If they need mental health treatment when they're younger, give them the support that they need. Put as much money as there is into the system. Make the rich people pay their taxes. Make sure that the flipping homeless and the vulnerable are looked after. Get the poor people off the streets. Give them a flat. Give them free utilities. It's still cheaper than putting them in prison.
Well, why would I want to love someone that'd kill people?
Because you're a human being.
No,
and you've sinned yourself. We all sin, just on different levels.
I mean, there's a big level, isn't it? It's a big level.
That's not supposed to be flippant. We all do bad stuff, and a lot of people get away with
I'm sorry to say that I've never killed anyone or thought of killing anyone.
No.
I've never killed anybody, but I have thought about it, and lots of people I know have thought about it, and they haven't gone through with it for reasons that maybe they have a mental illness that lowers their inhibition, or maybe drinkers lower their inhibition because they can't stop drinking because maybe they're trying to drink something away. All I'm saying is I'm just asking for some compassion and for some empathy for some of the most marginalized people. And prison is not sexy. It's not a sexy thing. I understand that. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't make people go, let's help them.
What I'm saying is,
beings too, everyone in there, them people in there, they're our brothers, our sisters, our aunts, our uncles.
Yeah, but say it. I'm just going to say to you, right? Some of the people some of these, not all of them, but some of these people have done horrendous things, and they're our brothers and sisters as well. And I feel compassion towards them. And so this is what you'll face, but you'll know, you're because you're campaigning, you'll have seen this, Cookie, because the things are said against the two of you as well, I dare say, have been said against anyone that campaigns for prison reform. The thing is, right, people will say, well, why are we putting the attention on the people who've done wrong when the victims are being basically blindsided? Now, I know you're not saying that. Because they will get out of
prison one day and they will continue to reoffend. They will continue to leave a trail of destruction that you could not comprehend. Because most people who go to prison for extreme violence, when they get out, it's even more extreme. And we have an opportunity as a society to be able to stop this and to be able to slow down this progression of anger. Prison makes you angry. And if you're already angry when you go in the system, you're just going to get a powder keg go off as soon as they hit the streets. I say to people, put the effort, put the money, put the resources into the prison system, because in the long run, not only will it save money, but it will save countless lives and countless amounts of misery.
We could reduce the. I mean, that's what I'm saying. There is the thing about being punished for crime, for the crime that you've done, but at the same time, there's that other moral issue as well, that the impact of that punishment is that punishment impacting to the point where people are losing their lives because of it, and it to the point it's become a vicious circle. So we need punishment because we need to be punished for what we did wrong.
The levels of self-harm are out this world,
as a human being.
Then people ain't ready for reform, but they still need compassion and still need help.
That's right.
But what I'm saying, Sarah, this is what I'm saying to you, it's, you know what, you've got to get society on board as well. That's what you've got to do. And, you know, you've just got to say that someone's got a television in the cell or a Game Boy and there's a kick up. Oh, look at that. It's Hilton, the Hilton Hotel, you know, Hilton Hotel, and they do all this. I think what it is, I've always thought, and I've always said this, prevention is better than cure. And of course, prison reform, if someone first goes into prison, and this is the question someone said, really, if it's only when it's stuff like, you know, violating people sexually or murder or whatever, that's when people should be in prison. A lot of things which you touched on, when it's things against property or whatever, you know, as long as there has an endangered life, make them pay back in the community. It seems stupid, or it being in debt shouldn't get you through prison.
The prison system and not in for violent offences.
Yeah, that's the problem with it. But when you've got
Scotland just started doing stuff on.
But just let's Cookie, I haven't finished my sentence yet. So just let me finish what I was saying. I know, put that grin on your face. But yeah, no, what I'm saying is when you get that, I always say prevention is better than cure. So that when you see the problem in the communities, or you see a problem where you say, wait a minute, this could be a hot spot where this is going to happen. You'd address it there and try to do it. And I've seen where this happened. Now, of course, you're never going to have pure success, but I've seen it where they've gone and put in like a theatre, a community theatre, or they put on a community place to go to. And they've got people in there, found out what they're interested in. And it's actually got those youths that could have, there was a potential for them to turn into criminal activity, actually got them working. I haven't met people in the theatre who came from that saved them. It literally saved them. These say saved me because I didn't have anything to focus on. So I think it's got to be, this is my own personal view, it's not only going to be prison reform that you work out, you're not just sending everyone into prison for everything, every crime that's committed, but also it has to start in the communities and prevent it from happening. And I think that's my idea. It's vital to do a two-stage process. That's what I think. But what were you going to say, Cookie? Go on. In Scotland,
Scotland have started doing this prevention thing around violent crime, and they've managed to, because the prisons, they've more or less, the politicians are more or less wrote the prison system off, basically. So when the violent prisoners get out of jail, the Scottish get ahead of them and start addressing that social economic problems that are going on. That's been or drug problems that have been going on socially for them, and it's been dramatically reducing violent crime in Glasgow, and it started spreading it out across Scotland. However, us dumb English won't have nothing to do with it. We'll refuse to have anything to do with these successful policies that are just across the board in Scotland, you know, addressing real social problems, admitting that we do have an underdeveloped part of our society.
Yeah,
you know,
that's it.
Stuff like that. The Scottish are doing alright when it comes to that.
You're right, Sid. It doesn't get votes.
It won't win votes. That
tough.
You could release 750,000. So what was it? So you can release 75,000 people from the prison system, and that means there'll only be 25,000 people in the system. Then there'd be more staff than they need.
Yeah,
yes. They'd have more than enough staff to look after all the violent prisoners. Then, wouldn't it?
If you release the non-violent ones.
This is it. That's the thing. I've always found, well, I think most people do find the prison service absolutely a waste of time. It's never really worked at all. It never has. But I'll start winding things down now, but we'll do a second part to this because it's so massive. And what I want to go into next time, actually, what I'm going to do, Sarah, is I'm going to invite you on as well, if you agree to it, and talk to you about your experience of life and all this on your own. If you agree to that, I'd love to have you on, telling people your experiences in life. But the last thing I'd like to ask you now is, first of all, I think I've asked you this, Cookie, but I'll ask you again. What bit of advice would the modern you give to the 17-year-old you?
Just, just take it on the chin. Just
in
take
other words,
all the feelings on it, all the difficulties, all the, them cut corners. Just deal with it. Just deal with your problems.
For me, get the best education you get.
Knowledge is power. I love you, Sarah. I love you. I keep on saying this again. Education is everything. Without education, you don't know how to communicate in a way.
Tony Blair was right about that.
Yeah, education. I agree with you 100% there. And all that I'll say, Cookie, is you've reminded me of my favourite film of all time, Gone with the Wind, where Scarlett O'Hara, she sums up what you're saying in one sentence when at the end of the film, she's been crying on the stairs. Red Butler's left her. She's absolutely distraught. And then she looks up and she says, tomorrow is another day. And that's what you've just said. It is. But thank you for joining me. And I say, Sarah, Cookie's back on. It's
been a privilege.
I've loved speaking to you.
I was so excited for so long.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. But Cookie is back on Saturday with Bobby Kay. And we'll be talking about changing. Yeah.
And
yep.
For a sense of balance, right? I'd like to take this opportunity to thank every prison officer that went out of their way to help me, and many did. They weren't all dogs.
No,
some of the officers I met were amazing.
Yeah,
and I love them.
You always get good people in some place.
Absolutely.
So very difficult job of prison officer. Very difficult.
But to say to people, thank you for joining and listening. I say,
they're people too.
Join in on Saturday at 7:00 for me and Bobby Kay and Cookie talking, and Sarah, I'm going to have you on the following week if you can do. Okay, take care, darlings. Bye-bye.
See you soon.